And schools all across Missouri are continuing to battle against the COVID-19 pandemic, especially after an order from the governor, which announced last week. Governor Parson said that they will not be allowed back in classrooms until next school year. To talk about how the district is handling this, I'm joined now by Columbia Public Schools Superintendent Peter STIEPLEMAN. And Mr. STIEPLEMAN, thanks so much for joining us this morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. I want to circle back to that question we asked you in our last half hour. So CPS has completed 3 days so far of that alternate learning plans, and today we'll begin that first full week of that. How has that gone so far?
Yeah, so it may be fair to say that we technically started this alternative method right after spring break, but soon learned very quickly that we were overwhelming our families with the fact that we were trying to convert what was traditional teaching into this remote learning realm. And so we took a pause, and that's what we talked about last week. And then over this past week, we have launched just a different model in terms of just trying to create better systems so that families would know exactly when they were going to hear from teachers. Math is on Mondays, language arts on Tuesdays, science is on Wednesdays, social studies Thursdays, and then clubs and activities, because so many of our kids, that's where they feel in terms of where they're connected with school, are through those clubs and activities. Those are on Fridays. So how are we doing? I think we're doing pretty well. We have heard mostly from families saying, thank you for rethinking this and creating a system that works for families. Absolutely, you can expect that. We've also heard from others who say that we need to be doing more. And so, it's about striking that balance.
And Governor Parson made that announcement to shut down schools statewide, of course, just school buildings. And that happened after we had talked last Monday, after this new plan was announced. So does that order change anything for CPS?
No, in fact, it complements the order. We have been talking here locally as a school district and then regionally with Mid-Missouri School District, and then reaching out to our colleagues in St. Louis and Kansas City, because Columbia is the 5th largest district in the state of Missouri. And so we have sometimes more similarities with the large districts than we have with some of the smaller ones. Although I got to tell you, I am in just such awe of the smaller districts. Those superintendents and their faculty, those staffs, they do everything. So my hat goes to them, and I just stand in awe of them. So in talking with everybody, it really looked like we were all moving towards this idea of it is too soon for us to really even be thinking about when we would be back. We knew we had to rely on our local health departments to sort of help us through the modeling and when would be safe. So when the governor came forward and said we would not be returning this year, it was consistent with what we were planning for. So our AMI, our alternate method of instruction, it went right into what was very consistent with the governor's message.
And so a lot of people, I know seniors, we actually have a senior from CPS here running our teleprompter right now. So we've got CPS students here.
I know, I heard her questions last week about prom and graduation. I really wanted to reach out and just answer them.
I know. So, I mean, of course, on the minds of a lot of seniors is, have you made any decisions about graduation? What will my post plans look like from CPS? Has there been any more developments or talks on that?
Yeah, so we had a conversation with the University of Missouri, because we rely on the Mizzou Arena to hold our graduations, and so it appears that just on the very nature that they canceled theirs, and so that the arena would not be available in May. We'll get confirmation on that. However, we know it's really important to our kids. I mean, the whole idea of a high school graduation it is a part of their ritual of their whole schooling, right? We say to them all throughout their schooling, you're going to graduate high school, and then you're going to move on to a 2-year or 4-year, an internship, the military. You're going to go on to right into industry. We talk about their future endeavors, and that sort of gate, that doorway to their future is their graduation, is crossing that stage. So we know how important it is to our families and to our kids, and so we're looking for an alternative to do that. It may be in an arena type of place. It may be at schools. So we're trying to figure that out, and we'll figure that out soon. And in terms of prom, we know that's so important. That's, again, another one of those rituals. The school concerts, those culminating events, the competitions, all of those things that happen in spring have been absolutely robbed from our kids. And so we're trying to figure out a way, do we do a community prom? What do we do? So we know this is important. The principals are working really hard to try to find out a way to make that come to fruition.
All right, Mr. Stiepleman, we'll come back to you here in just a few minutes. We do appreciate your time this morning.
Thank you.
We want to check back in with Columbia Public Schools Superintendent Peter Stiepleman. And Dr. Stiepleman, thanks so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
And I wanted to ask, what is CPS's plan for reopening? Will summer school be an option? And if not, we're looking at a reopening date for August. Do you guys kind of have an idea of what that would look like?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So we know that the governor has said that we wouldn't be back until next year. We're getting clarification on that. We do know that summer school is potentially an option, but it becomes a really hard hurdle to overcome. So in fact, we'll be talking with the Board of Education throughout this week and then again at their work session next week to talk a little bit more about what that might look like. You know, for us, 9,000 kids typically attend summer school, and that takes about 6 to 8 weeks to make sure that all of our buses are routed. It takes more than a month to get everybody hired, and we have lots of building projects and things like that. So if we're talking about a pandemic, and particularly here locally, that is supposed to peak in the next couple of weeks, which means that really not until the beginning of May would we begin to see the backside of that peak. Well, then the question really remains in terms of when is it safe for having children and adults to return to buildings? So we'll be really working hard and closely with the health department to work on that modeling to see when is it appropriate to bring children back into school and whether or not we really need to focus on credit recovery, credit advancement, and some what I've been calling boot camps that are online for particularly those middle school kids who are taking high school credit-bearing courses so that we make sure that anything that they need to have really done before they take on